So, welcome to Quarantine with Lou. I'm your host and strategic partner in cost reduction, Louis Fernandez. And today we're joined by Mark Morris, serial entrepreneur, actor, director, ghostwriter, and a true altruist. But before we get into that, if you're a fan of inspiring people and informative content, then you come to the right place because that's all we do. So, go ahead and ghostwrite a review for the like button and promote that book that you just ghostwrote. And with that, Mark, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. I got my popcorn. The world is burning. I'm here with you. It's all
Yes.
good.
So we are currently recording this on Insurrection Day. So happy Insurrection.
Woohoo! Happy it's man. I hope that's not what this ends up being called, Lewis. If it does,
So
I'm blaming you.
as we are having this conversation, people have stormed the Capitol building, and our elected representatives are also quarantined, just not with Lou.
Yeah.
In their own respective. So we're trying to take a pause because anybody that has tried to schedule an hour-long discussion with anyone in this current climate knows that um, it's hard to do. So when you finally
Yep.
get it, you kind of go through with it and you make it work.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
so Mark is a very interesting individual, and he probably wouldn't tell you that himself.
Oh,
But
I would. I just
okay.
don't know if I'd describe it in the same terms. But yeah, interesting is one of those words. It's not always fun. So it's kind of like exciting. That doesn't mean it's good.
So one of my favorite series that you've done was what was that called? It was like the Adventures. You kind of went through your history as an entrepreneur, and you
Oh
took
yeah, adventures as a solopreneur
adventures
or
of
in solopreneurship or no $0 startup. I don't remember what I called it, but that's basically what it was. Yeah.
and if you're on LinkedIn and you find Mark on there to check out that series, there was like 7, 8
Yeah, I
something.
think 7 or 8 of them. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's my real life story. That's the highlight. That's the highlight reel. So yeah, there were
absolutely phenomenal.
lots of interesting stories in there that happened, but yeah, it's a crazy life, man. I just decided at the age of about 24 that I was done punching a clock. Even at that age, it made me so angry when I would come in like 5 minutes late from lunch. Even I'm not getting paid, I'm still clocked out, and clock in and then get scolded by somebody.
Mhm.
It's like, listen, when I'm here, I work. I was in a cabinet shop at the time. And so when I left there, I was just like, okay, I'm done with this nonsense. I can't do it anymore. And I'd run all my own businesses as a kid. You read that if you read the series. So my first entrepreneurial experience was at the age of 4, crawling around in the yard with my dad with a flashlight after we'd set the sprinkler out so the worms would come up in a little town called Atlantic, Iowa. And we sold them for 25 cents a dozen. And that, my friends, is how I earned my first bike.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean. Like, I enjoyed that story so much. Every time it came out, I don't I don't usually watch like LinkedIn lives. I don't pause when I'm in LinkedIn too much. You pause to
Sure.
engage, to read a comment, read a post or whatever. Occasionally I'll catch an article, but like legitimately going to your profile and looking to see if the next installment was out yet. Like, this was such a neat story, and I can't recommend it enough.
Thank you.
And well, I mean, you're a writer, so it kind of makes sense that it's well written.
I'm a bit of a storyteller, that's for sure.
and
They made a
and
movie
that's
about me. Maybe you've seen it. It's called Big Fish.
oh yeah.
No, I'm kidding. It's about a dad who lies to his kid his whole entire life,
Yeah.
makes up these tall tales. It's a good movie though.
So you left this cabinet shop, and then you went, and if I remember, you went and opened your own shop, right?
I actually just went straight to the homeowners and started doing home improvement work. So what I did was I walked out of there with my last paycheck. I went to work for a buddy actually in landscaping for about 6 weeks, um, just as an interim because I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. But he was a madman, and I don't mean that in a bad way. He wasn't like insane or anything. He's actually a really good guy, but his work ethic physically, um, just dang near killed me. So the two of us had to part ways. And one day I just looked at him after some stuff hadn't gone quite the way he expected it to. And I said, Chad, buddy, we've been friends a long time, since like we were both in the 8th grade. And I think we should stay friends, which means I can't work for you anymore. He's like, well, I mean, it's better you quit than I have to fire you. And I was like, thank you. So I called my wife, left the truck that he was letting me drive there, and I had her come pick me up. I was like, I quit my job, honey. She's like, oh, that's great. So then I just took what money I had and about 20 bucks in my pocket. I went and printed up some flyers. We had a computer that my wife's brother had given us after he graduated from architecture at college, and it was supposed to be for our kids, but this was the AOL dial-up days.
Yeah.
And it had something, I don't know, man, it was Adobe PageMaker or something on there,
Mm-hmm.
So I set up a little flyer and I did this little rhymey thing. And I knew how to peddle business because I had already, done, my brothers and I, we used to do like paint numbers on street curbs in the summers to earn money for summer camp. Or we would work, we had a company called Courtesy Landscape Maintenance for a couple of years where we cut grass. It was a very casual thing. We had these bright green, like about the color of what your wall looks like behind you there. We had these bright green business cards, and we'd take those around and we'd put them on people's door with a price on the back. And we'd get calls. We'd have like probably 12 or 14 customers at a time, and we'd just take our little lawnmower. My mom would drop us off, and we'd work through the neighborhood and have her come back and get us at a certain time because nobody had cell phones back then.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the deal. So I knew how to do that. So I just went and I looked for a neighborhood that had homes that were bigger, nice homes that had been well built at one point with nice cars in the garage, but everything was aging,
Mm.
So the cars were older, the homes were older, the owners were older. They couldn't get out and climb the ladder anymore to fix what was wrong with the house. But at the same time, they had enough money to deal with it. So
this is so legit because you have identified, just in that little statement, you identified your ideal client, and then what are the indicators about what that person's life looks like, right? And then you went and targeted that. That is outstanding. Very well thought out.
thank you. Well, I had my dad, when I was growing up, up until the age of about 13, 14, he was in ministry. He was a pastor. But once he got out of that, we tried all kinds of things because he didn't really have any education or marketable skills. So we were in landscape maintenance. We did window cleaning. We did, man, I don't even remember all the different things we did. But, so we would peddle our services door to door, basically. And I just learned how to sell. It was never hard for me to start conversations with people. I've never had stage fright in my life. I was in front of my first audiences when I was like 3 and 4 doing Peppa shows with my dad for vacation Bible school stuff.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't a big deal. I just grew up doing it. And that did never bother me. I had probably no lack of self-confidence, I'm sure. And so my first gig though, I landed this deal where this guy wanted this fence built, and he lived off of a golf course. And it was these big 12-inch wide cedar boards, and the fence it ran from like 4 feet in some places where the view of the golf course was good. And then it kind of swooped up on an angle to over 10 feet in the back where the maintenance shed for all the golf carts was, because he didn't want to see it, And so I went in and I had learned a little bit about how to bid things. And I ended up getting an $8,000 job just right out of the gate.
Wow.
So he was like, well, do you have everything you need? And I said, well, no, but that's what the deposit's for. And he said, what deposit? I was like, well, I'm not going to start work until you pay me something. And he was like, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a couple $100 for expenses, and then I'll go with you and purchase whatever tools you need. We'll bring them back. And when the job's over, they'll be yours. I was like, okay, fair enough. It's my first gig. So, since I'm starting out new and I look like I'm about 19 years old, I get that. That's fair. So built that, took me about half the summer. Just about killed myself getting it done. And, finished on the last day, like my rent was due. Everything was due. I was out of money and just like working here in Oklahoma, it's probably like you're in Arizona, right? So you know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about those long summer days where it
Yeah.
just seems like it goes on to like 11 p.m. You can still see outside, and it's 120 degrees until
Yeah.
2 in the morning. Yeah. So it was like that. And so I finished it up, and he said, well, it's pretty dark out here. If you'll come back in the morning, I'll cut you the check. I just want to walk around, make sure you got everything done first. He cut me the check, and I just moved on. I had like 4 other customers in that neighborhood ready to go. So
Wow.
yeah, that was it.
And then later, at some point, you become well, it sounds like you were already an actor as well.
I started acting at 14, seriously.
Yeah.
But yeah, my first performance, real performance, was in second grade. I was the pizza delivery guy in Miss Somebody's Runaway Presents. It was a Christmas show, and I was mad because my best friend got the. Oh, I wasn't the pizza guy. I was the delivery guy. He was the pizza guy, and he got the part I wanted. So,
Mm.
because I fancied myself to be the best actor in the class, even though I'd never done it before. So, whatever that's worth. But when I was 14, a friend of mine came to see a play that I was in, and he was one of these guys who was really sarcastic. Like nothing ever came out of his mouth that wasn't a smart ass remark.
Mm.
But he looks at me and he goes, "So, Mark, what are you planning on doing with this acting thing?" I said, "I think I'm really going to, try to pursue this. I might even, keep going with it and go to college and make a career out of it." And he looks at me and he goes, "You're pretty good. I think you should." And that stuck with me because he
Mm.
never said anything like that. If he gave you a compliment, then it was going to be, there was going to be a backstab twist on the back end of it where it's like, yeah, but you really suck, but he didn't say that. And I was like, wow, that's weird. So it's amazing how just one person encouraging you or confirming something that you believe about yourself can really change your life. And so I started really pursuing that. And the way that I did it was primarily through church drama in the beginning. And I was in a company, though, that did just like classical Broadway musicals when I was in high school. So when I was getting out of the cabinet shop, when I worked in the cabinet shop, I worked like 2 afternoons a week with the lady who had bought that company as her acting instructor. And I also designed scenery and started doing, that kind of stuff. So when she and her husband decided they were done with it, we stupidly decided that we would take my in-laws up on their deal to buy the company for us. And that, listen, if you're an actor out there, there's and I haven't seen it a little bit. There was this ad running around on Facebook that was all about how you can start a music theater academy and make tons of money.
Mm.
Bullshit. No, you cannot. It's impossible. You might be able to figure out how to sustain yourself with it, but you are not gonna. It's not easy like they say it is.
Mm.
Not at all. It was really tough, but it was a lot of fun. I did that for like 15 years. So,
Mark, you probably don't know this about me, but I also did some acting. I was a big drama guy in high school.
cool.
Um,
I believe that.
yeah, well, I did. I did a few different roles, and I did the Wizard of Oz. And my wizard, I was the wizard. And when the wizard was discovered, he had a very strong Spanish accent like this. And that was my version of the Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
You use what you got, man, right?
Yeah. And then
So
I
you were
can't.
like Ricardo Montalban playing.
Yeah. It was, and
That's awesome.
and then I did Anything Goes.
Yeah, good show.
I was a
I
mobster,
directed it twice.
but I can't sing. So when I auditioned, I told the director, I was like, "You ever heard a mobster sing?" And then I just did the mobster voice, so I just spoke
Yeah.
my songs. I didn't actually, it's like I'm just gonna.
So you were, what was his name? Bugsy?
I can't remember.
I can't, it was, yeah, I remember who you're talking. He was like the boyfriend of the lead girl, right?
Yep. Yep.
Like he was her mob boss boyfriend,
Yep.
and then later someone made a movie called Showgirls that was the exact same plot, only
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So everybody was singing, and I would come out and be like, "Friendship is the greatest blend ship." Like that was my.
That was a great show, man. I liked that show a lot.
So yeah, I did a few plays. So I thought about going serious about it too. I like doing voices and that kind of stuff. And but my parents convinced me to just go to college instead.
They were smart.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No, it was a good call. It was a good call. And then sophomore year of college, right, kicking it off is when September 11th happened. Uh,
dude,
so yeah, I was
that
in
was
a.
a day.
I know,
That was a
uh,
day.
and that's when my life changed. So yeah,
Yeah. Did you end up signing up after that?
I did. Yep.
Wow.
I went into ROTC. Actually, I almost dropped out of college because I wasn't having fun in school anyway. And yeah, my several people spoke to me, and then my grandfather called me. My grandfather was he was an immigrant from Cuba, and when he came to the states, let's say he was like 35, had four kids, ended up having a fifth while they were here. Um, didn't speak the language, worked three jobs, put my grandmother through school. So she got a master's degree in computer science in 1968, I want to say.
Wow.
And my grandfather paid for it all, running a delivery truck, pumping gas, delivering newspapers, just doing what had to be done. I mean,
Yeah.
he
That's how they did it back then, man.
yeah. I mean, he
They were
worked hard.
hardcore.
Yeah, he was. And so he called me, and the conversation was in Spanish, but essentially it was a reminder of all of the things that he did when he got to the States. And then
Hmm.
he told me, I made a lot of sacrifices so that my children and grandchildren will have a better life. So you owe me. So you're going to finish school and then you could join the military, you know?
That was a good call.
Yeah.
Be very blessed that your grandfather had the foresight,
Yeah.
because a lot of immigrants would have been like, "Yeah, put the uniform on, grab a gun, go fight,"
Yeah.
but learn something first. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely, that's good. So, what
Yeah.
was your degree in?
I graduated with a degree in history, and it became a pencil whip because, like I said, I almost dropped out. So I started
Yeah.
in engineering, and I had a 4.0 GPA. And I told my parents, just so you know, not because I can't do it, but because I hate it, I'm changing my major. And I ended up graduating as a history major just because I needed a degree.
Hmm.
But that taught me a lot of things about reading, how to digest large amounts of information, develop hypotheses, write a story, be compelling, make
Yeah.
an argument. And a
All
lot of
good things, man. All good things.
yeah, a lot of our class, they were pre-law, so about half of them went into law school after, uh, and then like whatever the seven or eight of us that were there from ROTC went into the military. Right? Like we were all like,
That's
yeah,
my understanding that poli sci and history are the two big things that people end up going to law school from,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. Well, because I mean, you do so much. I was writing at some point, but probably my senior year, probably 5 pages a week at least, 5 to 10. And
Yeah.
then yeah, final exam, midterm finals, 30-page papers per class type stuff.
Hmm.
Um,
That sounds so intimidating to most people. It's funny, I've been doing this 10 post a day thing on LinkedIn, and people who are professional writers are like, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, I mean, because they ask me questions, Lewis. They send me questions in my inbox. They're like, "How long does it take you to write a post?" 30 seconds. What? How long does it take you to edit it? I don't. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, listen. This started a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and there's a lot of experience that came in between here and there." So, yeah. So in 2010, when the whole entire bottom fell out of the world at
Mhm.
the end of that financial crisis, there was when I lost my theater. We, my wife actually is a pretty good graphic designer. She taught herself Adobe Illustrator years ago for just stuff we were doing. And I think she was helping a couple other people with their business stuff. And she's really, really good. But she's also a painter, an amazing painter. She's done some portraits of some of my kids and one of our grandfather that hangs in a hall here.
Hmm.
But so she designed this flyer, this double-sided door hanger, and it was to get our music theater company up and running once and for all. This was gonna happen, right?
Hmm.
So we had 10,000 of these suckers made up. I think we invested like $1,600, which at the time felt like a fortune.
Yeah.
And we get these boxes full of this stuff, and we get some kids that are, some of them we owned.
Hmm.
Some of them we rented, from the studio. We were like, we'll pay you like $4 an hour and all the pizza you can eat. Come help us put these out. And the same thing again, I would target the neighborhoods that I knew had enough money to pay for their kids to come to my classes, but also had amenities in the neighborhood, like a neighborhood pool, playgrounds, stuff like that, that would attract people with kids, especially if they were close to either an elementary or a junior high. That was what I was aiming at.
Dude, you are a master of understanding your client. Like that
It doesn't feel like that to me. It just feels like what you should do. You know what I mean? No, it's just logic. I promise you,
right.
dude.
And
I know what got your
the ball where it needs to go.
Listen, Lewis, I know what got your six means because I've seen some movies, but you actually know how to do that shit. Okay, so that stuff seems like logic to you, probably.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're looking at some of the news footage today. I'm like freaked out. You're like, oh, I know exactly where I'd be and exactly what I'd be doing.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So it's it's just all about what we actually learn in life.
Mm.
And here's the thing that I know. I'll go ahead and finish telling that story in a minute, but everything that you learn connects like a spider's web to everything else that you learn. Okay. You cannot learn anything in life without it affecting all of the knowledge that you already globally possess.
Yeah.
Possible. So what ends up happening is you level up in areas that weren't even connected. I'm serious. You do. Weren't even connected to the thing that you just learned.
Yeah.
You ever feel that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
It's like you have a deeper understanding of something that you're like, well, that hasn't got anything to do with this, but okay. You know, because I'll tell another story when I'm done with this. But so we made this flyer. We had 10,000 of them. And we just started hammering through these neighborhoods, just putting them on doors. And then I went back to wait because this had always worked for us, at least on some level. And I was like, this is the best looking piece of marketing that we've ever put out there. We've always just done paper flyers. It's always brought us new students. It always manages to get us going again. And I think out of this 10,000, we should expect to pick up at least 50 or 60 students. Okay, that's really what my expectation was, just based on what we had done in the past. And then everybody just stopped spending money entirely. It was gone. So even the students that I did have, their parents were like messaging me and saying, I don't think we're going to be able to do it this semester, you know? And they wouldn't really say why, but it was pretty obvious what was going on. The people who weren't, you know, getting really hammered in the stock market and in their 401ks and, you know, bad real estate deals and not being able to pay their mortgage and all that stuff were afraid that they were next.
Yeah.
You know, unemployment was spiking. It was just tough. It was tough all over. And so we were just faced with the reality that we got 0 calls. 0. Wow. Out of 10,000, we got 0 calls. I take that back. I got 1 call. A woman called to complain because her sprinkler had soaked through this paper, you know, the cardstock and stuck it to her front door. And I literally had to go out and use my carpentry skills to repair this woman's door to keep her from calling the police.
Wow.
That's what happened. So we were like, well, damn, I guess we're done. So we closed the place down and we owned our own building. We'd actually built a theater and everything. It was a real undertaking. It was a lot of fun. But we closed the place down and I had no idea what I was going to do.
Were you able to sell it?
It actually belonged to my in-laws because they stupidly came in and funded us a second time after they had bought it the first time and I'd almost bankrupted it. They're like, we think you just need your own building. That'll make it easier. Yeah, sure. Give an idiot who can't run a business more to handle. This is why I work solo now, Lewis. I'm telling you, I don't want to be anybody's boss. I don't like bossing people. I don't even like to tell my kids what to do, which is why I wait until I'm really upset and then it comes out wrong. It's like, oh, that wasn't good. You know, and when I have to boss my wife, that never works out. I don't know how it works out.
Yeah, that you should know better.
29 years, I do know better.
Okay.
But, you know, sometimes you still got to step to the plate and at least take a swing at it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Or she'll think you're not paying attention. But
you became a ghostwriter.
Yeah, well, sort of. The home improvement thing, I kind of did a little bit of that for a little bit. But I ended up on this site called Demand Media, which anybody who's been a content writer in the last few years, you may or may not know what a content mill is. So in 2009 to about 2013, we were actually building the internet. And when I say that, we were putting all the content into it. that you see today.
Mm.
Okay. The bulk of what's out there that Google searches and finds, it started then. And most of what's there now is iterations of what was built during that time.
Hmm.
Okay. Because Facebook was getting started. People were actually starting to adopt the internet as a real thing. It
Yeah.
wasn't just us weirdos. I'd been on since 1997 running a blog. But so it wasn't just people, and I wasn't a techie. I was just fascinated because there was so much information and so many conversations going on. So I found this company called Demand Media that wanted people to write home improvement articles.
Hmm.
And that's what I did. I wrote 3,600 of them in 16 months.
Man.
And that's where I learned to really crank stuff out.
Right.
Because you had an editor and you had to meet a special rubric, for word count and all the different parts of it. It had to have a certain number of steps. And then each step had to have some type of a reference. And it was all this stuff. Well, I already knew how to do everything I was writing about. So what I would do, Lewis, is cheat. And when I say that, we're all my words, but what most writers were having to do was grab stuff out of the queue, go and find a book or go and find a website and research it and read about it. And then they'd come back and they'd write about how to put on a doorknob. They've never put on a doorknob before. So it'd take them 4 hours to write an article about how to put on a doorknob. Meanwhile, I could write that article in 20 minutes, spend another 10 to 15 minutes finding sources that would exactly corroborate exactly what I just told them.
Mm.
And here's the beauty. Because I was an improver, I could write that same damn article 6 times in the same day, and they would never ding me one time for plagiarism. I didn't even copy myself, not one single sentence. I don't know what to say about that, other than I was just a savant at writing articles. I wasn't any good at anything else. It was just like an idiot savant, basically.
I just did some simple math in my head. What you're pumping out 7 to 10 articles a day.
About 4,500 words, yeah.
Every single day. 365.
Yeah. Anywhere from, that's about right.
4,500 words each?
No. 4,500 words a day.
Oh,
total.
Okay. I was gonna
They
say.
were anywhere from 400 to 500.
Oh.
So it was between, and I've averaged it out, tried to figure out exactly how many words it was, but yeah, and I still had access to that dashboard for years after they quit having work to do, and I would go back in there and actually use those as samples because I could link to the different ones, and it was like, so they were on ehow.com and AnswerBag, and I could still go to ehow.com and show you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles that I wrote. You just search my name.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So that's the deal.
Shoot, at that rate, you could write a book in just a couple weeks.
Yep, I've done it.
That's amazing.
I've done it.
So you get into that. Okay.
What do you want to hear next?
Yeah, and there's so much. And every story is like awesome. I'm sitting here with my jaw open.
I'm really not this impressive. I'm very disorganized. I'm super lazy. And that's why I did it, because I could sit in bed, watch TV, and work. I didn't have to leave my house. And the beauty of it was, you know what? When I started that job, Lewis, I had never bought anything online. I got a PayPal account and they started paying me through my PayPal account, and I linked that up to my bank account. I never saw cash. For probably a good 4 years, I never got paid anything in cash.
How much were you making doing that?
I think it were 20, 25 bucks a pop. So it wasn't a lot. I think it was about 35K, something like that.
In a year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that seems like
I had some other writing clients and stuff too that I was doing. And I was also doing some home improvement stuff on the side, so to speak.
So when did you sleep during this time?
Oh, I slept fine. No, you're missing the point. I'm really fast.
Yeah.
I can literally compose 2,500 words an hour and might have to spend 5 minutes editing that.
That's amazing.
It's just, so would you like to hear how that happened?
Absolutely.
Okay. When I was 7 years old, my dad was preaching in a little town called Beatrice, Nebraska. We lived in this little cottagey looking house next to the church building. And we had this huge old, what was the brand of that thing? I think it was an RCA. It was a big wooden console TV. It was black and white. and it was basically a big screen because they were huge back then, right? The
Mm.
tubes were big.
Yep.
So my dad was sitting in a rocking chair and he was listening to something. This was about the time that everybody was complaining about Carter giving away the Panama Canal. Okay.
Mm.
That whole thing was going down. I only remember that because that's what they were talking about. I think it might have been Walter Cronkite who was on.
Yeah.
But he was listening to the news, and we're sitting there, and my brother and I, we would literally put on our pajamas after dinner. We would come in and pull our jeans and our shirts back over our footy pajamas so we would be dressed because we don't want to
Mhm.
sit in the living room wearing pajamas because that's what kids do now. But back then, you wanted to be dressed if you were going to be awake, right? So we'd sit there with all of this on and wait for Emergency to come on. I don't know if you ever saw Emergency. It was
No.
Emergency 51. It was it was these guys that were paramedics and they were in Los Angeles. It was the Rampart station. It was kind of well, I'm sure you know what CHIPS was.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was the EMT version of CHIPS,
Okay.
basically.
Sure.
Okay. And so this was our favorite show. We even had these little fire hats that said Emergency 51 on the front. We'd wear them while we were watching the show. So we were waiting for this news thing to be over so that our show would come on. And all of a sudden, right in the middle of a sentence, Walter Cronkite gets really big like this and very bright. And then he just goes, and a little puff of gray smoke goes up from the back of that old TV. It was a Philco. That's what it was, that old Philco TV. And a smell of burned rubber. And I was like, are you going to turn it back on? He's like, I don't think I can. So he pulls it out from the wall, big scorch mark on the back of it where the tube had gone out. He literally unplugged it, drug it out on the porch for the junk man, came back in the house and declared that we would not have another TV.
Oh,
so
heartbreaking.
We didn't really watch that much TV back then, though, dude. There was only like 2 channels.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
Mickey Mouse Club and that, and
Saturday morning.
Starsky and Hutch occasionally, if Starsky and Hutch wasn't, about prostitutes, because sometimes it was, and my mom would turn it off. But yeah, Saturday morning, my dad loved Roadrunner cartoons. We'd watch those.
Bugs Bunny, dude.
But so I had just learned to read, and I was basically undaunted. I'm sure I was upset for a little bit because we couldn't watch the Mickey Mouse Club when we got home from school. But I just went to my dad's bookshelf, and he was an English minor in college. So he had like Shakespeare and all this stuff. My mom was an education major. So she had this great collection, a thing called Arbuthnot's Anthology of Children's Literature, which is about that thick. And it's tiny little black and white type with no illustrations, but it has every children's book basically written in the 10 years previous to whenever they published it.
Wow.
And it's for educators so they can, learn about this stuff. And so I would just consume page after page after page after page after page and anything they would give me. And so my dad, because the TV had burned up, he was like, okay, it's time for you to get a library card. So he takes me to the library and we go in there and I find Hardy Boy Mysteries. And by the end of that summer, I had read over 30 of those things.
Yeah.
So from the time I was in the first grade until I was about 15, I read over 1,500 books.
Wow.
And that is how I learned all of that.
Yeah.
Because I sucked at diagramming sentences. I knew, like, if you gave me a sentence and you asked me, is this right or is this wrong? I'd be like, oh, that's wrong. And I could show you what was wrong with it. But like putting all the pieces on the stupid little lines, and I just was like, this is nonsense. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I know how to write sentences. I can write better than my teacher. Why do I care what she says? So then in 3rd grade, I finally got an assignment to write a story. I was so excited. And they give you that big chief tablet that had like the lines on the bottom and like the big space up at the top for art. And I was I could draw. I remember in the 4th grade, I actually won a blue ribbon at the state fair for this crayon drawing of a Indian chief with like a feather that kind of tilted down like a dog's ear or something. Yeah. So it was about a haunted house. It was a Halloween. Mrs. Morgan. And I remember this lady because she took us on a field trip to her home, which was like a block from the school, where she had a player piano in her basement. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And it played The Entertainer. I'll never forget it. So we were supposed to do three sentences, and I heard 3 pages, and mine ended up being 6 pages. So when they did open house, here's everybody else with their one little page and their nice little illustration. Mine's like, like War and Peace, So that's kind of how it started.
That's cool. That's
thank you.
Man, every story is awesome. So let's fast forward from third grade and talk about a
Yeah.
little bit because you've got some projects going on now that I'm excited about. Even as sort of an outside observer, I've noticed some things, and I just said, okay. And you've even said it, like, copy this, and it was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll copy it. I don't have much to lose. Now I haven't gotten to 10 posts a day on LinkedIn, but I did ramp it up from like one a day to like 4 or 5. Um, and you've been pushing some of your data from my little mini experiment. My profile views are up 300%
Yeah.
in a week, and I think I've added, I don't know, another 200 followers in just a week. So
Man,
well, I started at
you're doing
9,000.
better on me than that. Oh yeah, you're kind of lower down but I was at 16,000 when I started. I don't get that many followers.
Yeah.
It's getting there though. It's building up.
Yeah. So I'd like to hear more about kind of your process there and what and you've got the 8 seconds rule, right?
Right. 8-second rule. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it said 8 seconds rule.
I say it in the intro says eight, or I think the ad that I read in there for anchor.fm says eight. I need to re-record it, but
Okay.
it's just 8-second rule.
All right. Cause I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'm saying it wrong. So I want to get it
No, you're
right.
good. You're good. No, I'm not offended. It's just something I made up. It's no big deal.
Yeah. So I mean, you got this podcast. You're
Yeah.
doing you're still doing ghostwriting. You're talking about maximizing LinkedIn. You're doing some coaching stuff. Um, I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about that, and maybe what you're comfortable sharing, free tip wise, for
Sure.
somebody that is listening to this, and then they're going to turn around
Okay.
and follow you.
What kind of tips do you want?
I don't know. You
Because
tell me. Like, what you?
listen. Okay, but no, that's not how this works. Because listen, this guy asked me to teach him about uh publishing the other day. I said, well, that's about a 3-hour long conversation. I'm going to
Right.
be half hour for free. He's like, well, how much is your time? And I told him, he's like, well, I'll buy the whole 3 hours. I literally for 3 hours straight talked to this guy about publishing.
Okay.
So
I don't
what
have
kind of tips
3 hours.
do you want?
I haven't eaten dinner yet, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna do that. So I'm gonna hold you to like 20 minutes.
You're good.
Uh, so when we talk about kind of your LinkedIn strategy, because you
Okay.
seem to have like let's do that overall.
It's not really a LinkedIn strategy. It's a social media strategy in general. It's actually an
Okay.
internet marketing strategy. And it's basically 3 prongs. Okay.
Mhm.
Number one is all the background stuff. It's that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles, all saved into a portfolio, and the blog content, and my articles on Medium, and my articles on LinkedIn, and my
Yeah.
books, and the interviews about those books. So if you Google me, not very many people can say this, but literally, if you Google Mark R. Morris Jr., you're going to get 4 pages of like actual entries that are me.
Nice.
Okay. Because I've spent the last 23 years building this up. I didn't do it intentionally. That's not what I was really setting out to do. I was trying to sell my fiction. I was, it was all based on some project I was doing.
Yeah.
I ran a social media company for a while. So a big part of it was that. Just stuff like that. But basically, you set up this gigantic magnet, and if you're smart, it's all over the place. So yes, you want to have your own website, but if that's the only place you're publishing comment, copy, it's not going to get found very easily.
Right.
So you spread yourself around, and the more that you can do that, the further it will go. So that's the first phase. Then to kind of put the cherry on top of that, you need a really good profile. And that needs to be whatever platform you want to use. So like if you think Instagram is the shit for you, then go do it. If you think TikTok is the deal and that's going to make it happen, then do that.
Mm.
If you want to sell B2B and you're not on LinkedIn right now, you're missing a gold rush. And Lewis could tell, you're laughing. It's true, man. They're responding to everything.
Yeah.
It's a combination of 2 things, really, I think, right now, Lewis. Number one is that COVID forced everyone to be at home and left us with nothing but our digital connection. So engagement, like people actually posting on LinkedIn daily, is up like 100 times over
Oh,
what it
really?
was last January. So there's just a ton of people crawling around the site looking for content to read.
Oh,
Okay.
is that why everybody was
Secondly,
complaining about their views going down? Because now we've got a multiple of more.
yeah, I think that's yes. And so I think they probably like dialed the you know what? It might have been server protection, dude. They might have dialed the algorithm back because they're like, if we keep the engagement at the level it is now and 100 times more people are posting, uh,
Yeah,
we're going to need all of Facebook and YouTube servers just to keep up with this. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I think maybe it might, I mean, I'm kind of joking about that, but it might be a service thing.
yeah,
But I think it's probably is a management deal where they had to dial it back because if they didn't, if they kept everybody at the same reach and everyone was publishing like that, it would be insane.
yeah.
So, I mean, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that. Um, so then the next part is once you've got all that set up, so you have an identity, okay, you've built some authority in a niche, hopefully, some kind of topic of expertise.
Hmm.
Me, I'm what's known as a polymath. So I'm kind of all over the place. I have deep level expertise in home improvement, in theater, in parenting, in marriage, in writing, in theatrical performance, you know, composing musical, oh, just weird stuff that I
Yeah,
know a ton about that I've actually spent thousands of hours doing. So all that's out there and you can find it. So because of that, when people get a hold of that and you put it into a profile, then I write something like my bull writer about section, which explains the 8-second rule. And the 8-second rule to me was there was supposedly in 2012, Google did a study and they found out that 8 seconds was how long someone would stay with your content before they switched over to something else if you didn't catch their attention. Well, it turns out Google didn't exactly do a scientific study on that. It's actually 12 seconds, but still, when I heard it back about 7 or 8 years ago, probably, right about the time it came out, so probably about 2012, I decided to start using it because it immediately Luke Perry, an actor from 90210, the
yeah,
original. I think he passed away a few years back, but he did a movie called 8 Seconds that was about cowboys. And I knew that bull riders had to stay on, a bull for 8 seconds. I grew up in the West. I grew up in the South. I wasn't a big rodeo fan or anything, but I knew. And so it immediately just like gelled. It was like these two
yeah,
ideas just collided in my head. And I was like, wow. So if I call myself the bull rider of copywriting, I wonder what happens. So I started putting this into the emails that I would use in order to approach clients from like job writing sites. My header would be on my email would be, I'm the writer you're looking for. Oh, the open rate on that, Lewis, was through the freaking roof.
yeah.
Because who doesn't, I mean, they're like, oh, look
Really?
at the balls on this guy, But then they open it up and that bull rider copy's in there.
Mm.
See. So they would call me. I would get a lot of interviews,
Wow.
but most of the time they were, because we were still building out the internet, labor was really super cheap. And we were coming to the end of it where sites like eHow and stuff were getting dinged by Google
Mm.
because basically what they were doing was they're like, you know how to build a big authority site? Lots and lots and lots of tiny subdomains that are all articles, and we just cram it full of every kind of information there is. So from probably 2008 to like 2013, 14, if you Googled how to do anything, you were going to land on an eHow property every
Mm.
single time. That was going to be
Yeah.
the top search. You were going to find eHow.com. And it was, if it was home improvement, 50% chance it was one of my articles. Because they were good and they got a lot of reads because I
Yeah.
actually knew what I was doing. The rest of them were all just freelancers. But where was I going with this?
I don't know, man.
I don't know,
I'm
what was
just
I talking
along.
about? Oh, so once you've got that all set up and then people find you, I was telling you about how I used it in emails. When
Right.
people find me now, they don't go, well, can you write?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll ask me what I've written before, and I just like start typing and send a little bit and keep typing and send it. I'll be like, okay. So it's shock and awe, man. If you have 500 pieces in your portfolio, no one goes, do you think you can write? No, they want to know if you've got the right style, if you've got the right price, and if you're available. That's it.
Yeah.
Those are the conversations I have. It makes my sales cycle about this long.
Yeah.
Even for like a $25,000 book deal, I usually have 2 conversations with the person. Okay. Because by the time they find me, they've already waded through so much of my content that they think they know who I am.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of it. Then you start putting stuff into a platform like LinkedIn where you're actually engaging people. All right. That's the second part. It's just tons and tons and tons of content. Well, I already had a huge backlog of content. Like I can talk about anything, as you can see.
Yeah.
If anybody listens to my podcast, I don't know how they're confused about how I write so fast and come up with ideas. What they don't know is there's no script, there's no notes. Occasionally I'll write down like 3 sentences and I just do 15 minutes just off the top of my head. Sometimes I don't even know what my 3 points are. I have to like stop in between segments and remind myself, oh yeah, I was going to say this next, or go back and listen to what I actually said I was going to say and then say it. You know, it's like, and now
I
I'm
tell you that we're
almost
going to do
50.
this in one take.
Yeah, that's good. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I mean, I don't know if you listened to the episodes about how I make my episodes. There's 2 of them, but they're anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes long. I do them in the segments that I have them edited into. So I will stop the recording and that's the segment. And then I record the next segment and I do every single segment basically in one take, unless I flub something and then I can delete that, minute and a half until I hit that really bad flub. And then I can go back and do it again. But I don't very often because I'd rather have my mistakes in there. Honestly, I want it to be approachable. I want it to be duplicatable. I want people to feel like they can actually copy what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So you've got that. And then the third part of it is you have to engage people.
Right.
You have to answer every single comment.
Yes.
You have to, if a post isn't going good, you got to watch it. And if it's not getting comments, but maybe it has 5 or 10 likes, go in there and tag a few of the people that, are liking your stuff and say, hey man, how's it going? What do you think about this post? And get some conversation started. This will work on any platform. Now, some of the tools are not the same, right?
Yeah.
So you may not have the exact same engagement tools on every platform, but every platform allows you to publish content of some sort, whether that's video or audio or written or all 3. If you can do memes or whatever, it doesn't matter. But you put out what's going to appeal to your audience, figure out who you're writing to, who you're talking to, put out what you think is good bait for them. When they show up, engage them. And that's it.
It's sometimes I wonder, like, the bureaucracy of some of these larger companies and how they kill that creativity and don't let them do this. Because I think about like times when I was a marketer. I was in marketing. That was my job for 8 hours a day and did very little copy. Because I wasn't a copywriter. I was approving copy and helping do some salesy stuff. But I was thinking about, kind of what you just said there. You've got a decent following. I feel like I've got a pretty decent following on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, you're doing good.
And the idea is the same. It's let's go. And when you say engage, it's not just engage with your own stuff. It's also engaging with other people's stuff.
Yes.
You've got 16,000 followers. And when I send you this, I'm like, hey, you want to be on a podcast? Your response to me is, you've been following my stuff. Let's just see what happens. Right. Like that's what you put in the, right. I feel like we know each other because I'm engaging in your stuff. You're talking with me. We're having these conversations. And there's a lot of people out there that, you want to get noticed by somebody, have that conversation with those people. And if I was a big brand and I had a team of people that I could put on, I'd be out there. Like, if there is anybody that meets our customer requirements, engage with them. Imagine if Apple was doing a search on LinkedIn for anybody who mentions iPhone and is like engaging that content. Like, oh shit, Apple jumped on my post.
Well, for one, they would be more than 20% of the market share in smartphones.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the first step.
Right. Because you got a team. And so I see these paid LinkedIn ads that I don't engage with because you can recognize them, right?
Sure.
And it's this brand and you know how much they're paying for it. And there may be 3 comments on there and they haven't liked or responded to any one of them.
Nope.
Like, you've got automated 3 people that are going out of their way to chat with you, man. Yep. Give them a like at least. Like, hey, I appreciate you commenting. That's a great point. Whatever. That will take you 2 seconds to do. Like, literally.
Yep. Maybe
8 seconds. How's that? Ooh.
Now you got it. Well, listen, you have to keep their attention for 8 seconds to get the conversation started. So you have
Right.
to write a longer comment than that.
But yeah. That they're already.
Seriously, it needs to be more than a couple of words, unless
Yeah.
all they, if they just said like good post, you can say thank you to that. Or you can always be like, oh, what did you
What
like
did
about
you
the
like about it?
post?
Yes, there it is. Now
And you
they're
don't
getting another
always
comment.
want to do that
Yeah.
because there's some people that you get in your feed and you're glad that they're there because they're consistent and they show up and they comment and they like. But if you engage them in conversation, it's just going to get weird, and not like an entertaining kind of weird, just like
Yeah.
awkward weird. Like, I don't want to have to tell you that this is so bad. No, I just really, so whenever you're going to comment there, I'm just going to be like, thanks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Because I spent too long teaching people to be creative. I can't lie to them.
Mm.
So writers will send me stuff and they'll be like, critique me. Tell me I'm wonderful. I'm like, well, this part sucks. This part sucks. This part sucks. You got something over here, though. Keep trying. And then they don't talk to me again. It's like, I don't know what to say. You wanted some tips. There they are.
I had a bad boss one time pull me into the
Yep.
office and ask me, do you think I'm a good leader? This is my boss. And it was like random. Like my buddy, like this. Well, I guess I already said she comes out and looks at me and says, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And I go into the office and she shuts the door. And that's what she asked me. And I told her, I was like, I recommend that you don't ask a question that you're not prepared to receive an answer for.
That's exactly what I tell people. And they do anyway. They're like, oh, no, go ahead and tell
Go
me. I
ahead.
can
That's
take
what
it.
she
It's
did.
like,
So, I laid it out. I mean, I try to be
you
polite.
need to learn to speak English before you try to be a writer for American audiences. I'm sorry. I don't know how to break this to you gently. That's the deal. Your writing doesn't make any sense. I get you've got ideas. I know it. If you were writing in Hindi or whatever it is that you grew up speaking, you're probably brilliant. But just go get a fresher, on your English grammar, because it's not working.
Yeah.
That's what I find a lot of times on LinkedIn. And I try to be really gentle with them. The first thing I say is I'm super impressed that you speak more than one language, because people who are bi and tri and multilingual are just that's amazing to me. I know you probably speak Spanish.
Yes, I'm a native Spanish speaker, and I speak Italian and French as well.
What the heck? Did you pick those up in the military or?
My dad was in the Navy. So
Okay.
I left the States in 91 and I came back in 99.
Okay. So you picked them up as you guys were living in different places.
Right. So
cool. That's cool.
We lived in Spain. So I actually we spoke Spanish in the house. And then, so I lived in Spain, and then I started studying French. Actually, my mom.
French is the one that sticks out because Italian and Spanish and English have a lot of words in common and a lot of like word shapes, like prefixes and suffixes that you can kind of go, oh, I get that. Like manos in Spanish is hands, manual. Right. It's not difficult once you understand the Latin root of it and you kind of pick up on it. French, however.
Well, French is also a Latin-based language.
Yes, I know, but it doesn't look like one on the page. And it certainly doesn't sound like one when you're in Paris and you're like, oui? My wife thought her 3 years of high school French were going to come in, and she's like, are they speaking French? I was like, yeah, they are. It's so guttural. And over here, Americans speak it with this really soft French accent. We think you're being like Pepe Le Pew, and it's like, no.
No.
They're pretty fun. We had a good time in Paris.
Yeah, my mom started us on it. I was in 7th grade, and she got the whole family into it. It was like a thing she wanted to do. She's an artistic lady, and she gets these projects in mind. And I was an only child, so we all did it together.
That's cool.
And it was brutal, and I absolutely hated it. I hated being there. I hated having to go do more school after school. And the lady wanted to be nice, the instructor that we were paying, so she would like go overtime so that we really got our money's worth. And now, oh my God, it was like torturous to me. And I finally told my mom, I was like, hey, I'll take a French class in school if I don't have to come to these anymore. And so she agreed. But I can't remember. It was like she made me take 3 years, I think is what it was. Like I had to do 3 years. And
Yeah.
the thing is, once you've done 3 years, and it was smart on her part because she knew, like, I've already invested 3 years.
Right.
At this point, it only makes sense. And I kept doing it like, I don't want to lose what I've already done. And so I kept
Yeah.
taking French all the way through my sophomore year of college.
Well, that's good.
And
That's
then
good.
the last class I needed for a French minor was French literature. Now, mind you, that's from seventh grade until sophomore year of college. I've been taking French courses, and
Right.
I asked the teacher for the syllabus before I signed up. I like went and found the teacher, and of course, she made me ask her in French, and then she gave me
Oh
she
man.
gave me the syllabus, and I looked at it, and I looked at the reading list, and I looked at it, and I put it down, and I said, merci, but I'm not going to be signing up for your class. And she kind of asked why, and I was like, I have already read Les Miserables like 7 times, and I'm not doing it again. Like, I hated that book every single time. So it was that one book was the reason I didn't get a minor in French, was because of Les
That's funny.
Miserables.
That's funny. It's one of my favorite musicals, however.
Oh yeah, it was. Oh, that
It
was
might not be if I'd read the book 7 times, I guess.
no, the French literature. Everybody falls in love, everybody has sex, everybody dies, and so
That's life, man. It is. I mean, well, most of us get to have sex before we die. Not everybody, but we can't all be French.
so I guess my one of my last questions will be,
Yeah.
why did you pick 10 times a day, or how did you come up to that? Was that
It
just a
was okay, so it had nothing to do with the book 10x. Okay. I
oh no,
haven't read it.
I didn't
I
figure
don't, yeah. If a couple years back, a guy wrote a book called 10x. You're supposed to do everything 10 times harder, 10 times faster, 10 times
yeah,
stronger, 10
yeah.
times more, whatever. It was all about taking massive action, which is a
Yeah,
fair point. But I think I think those guys write those books, and then people like pick up on their like catchphrases and stuff, and they probably just want to hit themselves over the head with a hammer and like go to sleep for the next decade until everyone forgets,
yeah.
and then just wake up to all those royalty checks and
Well,
go somewhere.
that was
But yeah,
that's Grant
so it
Cardone,
wasn't
right?
about that, but it was just so here's the deal, man. I want 2021 to be the year that I put my content forward. I'm tired of writing for other people. I'm
Yeah.
exhausted by it. I have nothing left to prove in that arena to myself or to anyone else. And I know that people are like, well, you've never written,
Are you going to take
these
Ghostwriter
A to
then
Z
off of
types.
your?
No, not anytime soon, because I still have to eat. And I just launched a book project with a lady this morning, and I do enjoy the work, but it's just that I want to be able to put my own ideas out there. And the more I'm doing with how much content I'm putting out on LinkedIn and reminding myself of the ideas that I have, and I mean, they're derivative, a lot of them. They're iterations of somebody else's thinking, or they're ideas that I didn't necessarily come up with all on my own, but some of it's fresh because well, you've been in marketing for a while. Those ideas, they recycle,
Right.
right? So you'll have a new catchphrase coming up here in 2021. Who knows what it'll be? But you and I are old enough that we'll be like, oh, that's this thing. And they just, yeah, it's repackaged. Got it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can call it a funnel if you want. It's drip marketing.
Hmm.
It's the same thing from 2010 that was drip
Right.
marketing then. I call it the Chinese water torture method of marketing. I think it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? You just wear people down over time. It's like that annoying kid in that you knew in grade school who was always like, Lewis, Lewis, Lewis. And you're finally like, what?
I
Or like
got your
maybe
attention. Now you got 8 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. To convince me not to punch you. So 10 times, it was just, I just wanted to do something massive. And I knew that if I did that much, I would know for sure if putting out a lot more content would really make that big of a difference. And it just blew the heck up. I decided I would do it for 5 days to start. I've been doing it now since the 1st of December. So 37 days. And I'm exhausted, not by putting out the content. The content's no big deal. It's responding to all the flipping comments.
Yeah.
and the messages that you get and all of that. I almost need to like duplicate myself just to keep up with all the engagement.
Hmm.
At some point, I'm probably going to step it back to like 7 and see if my numbers stay the same, and then step it back to 5 and try to hit that sweet spot where I'm producing less content, but I'm still getting
Right.
a good level of return.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I have not been able to get to the 10 a day.
Oh yeah, no, it's cool. But you got 2 books worth of content, and there's probably some in there that you could be using.
Yeah, you're probably right. And I just need to go crack them open.
And if you go look at, I mean, if you listen to the rest of the podcast too, I've got tons of suggestions in there. You can use quotes, you can curate other people's stuff.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things you can do. Just ask questions sometimes,
Yeah.
It's about putting yourself in the news feed a lot. So what happens every time you put yourself in the news feed on any social media site is everyone who has notifications turned on sees that. If they're connected to you, they see that.
Yeah.
Okay. So every time you do it, it's like, oh, there's Lewis. Oh, there's Lewis. Oh, you're everywhere,
Right. Yeah, I've gotten that. I've gotten that from my non-active LinkedIn friends. They pop on and they're like, dude, you're all over this. Right. Because I'm
Yeah.
their one friend that's their one connection.
You're like, because I'm trying to get work out of my day job. That's why. It's like they want your results, Lewis. They want your results, but they do not want to do what you did to get them.
So I guess that we'll close with this. So let's talk about somebody who is in some form or fashion, they're looking to grow their LinkedIn this year, right? Whether
Okay.
it's start their own business or do whatever. You talked about get your profile updated, engage with people,
Yep.
get out in there in the feed.
Yep.
What is the last kind of thing that you would say,
Okay, I'm going to tell you about this dude, Clint Hinkle, real quick. I saw his post the other day. He was talking about how he was doing 5 job interviews in one day because he'd been looking for a job. He's kind of in a mid-level executive position, I think. He's an account manager of some sort. So he's not a CEO, but he's up there. So he was doing 5 interviews in one day, and he was talking about how he did it. And he said that basically over Christmas and through the holidays, he just made LinkedIn his full-time job. And then he got down to the nitty gritty, and he said he was putting 100 comments on other people's content every damn day.
wow.
So listen, if you really are in a position, if you're out there and you're listening to this and you don't know what you're going to do and you need money, but you have a way of selling, you've got something to sell, a product or a service that you can sell, and it's B2B, then get on to LinkedIn and sure, put up some content, but do what Clint did. Do what Clint did for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And here's the thing I don't get is why people who are hungry will sit and complain on LinkedIn, but then look at me and be like, I can't believe you spend this much time here. It's like, is your bank account empty or is it not? You just told everyone that you're having a hard time keeping your lights on.
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing about it?
Right. Awesome. I love that. So, any closing comments for none?
Man, I am just here to be the guy that I wish I'd met when I first got started.
Yes, I've heard you say that. And by the way, as a guy that's not as far along on their journey in solopreneurship, I really appreciate that. So,
Lewis, you are very welcome, my friend. And I'm excited to hear more about how all your little side business is going and how things go. And when you write your next book, I hope I'll be in the foreword and name your next kid after me. No, no, but we'll be doing some stuff together. Seriously.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
So I would say if anybody's listening or watching this at this point and you are still here, I feel Mark and I have earned at least a like and potentially a subscribe. I'm just saying it feels like we did our part.
Absolutely. And if you wanted to hear more from me, you can find 8 Second Rule. Just look up 8 Second Rule podcast or find me on LinkedIn, Mark R. Morris Jr.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you all, and we'll catch you on the next one.